When John Anderson abruptly left Yes at the end of the 1970s, a lot of people thought the band were finished, and yet by some amazing sleight of hand, the nameplate was pulled back together with the addition of the Buggles. Geoff Downes and Trevor Horn brought new life into the band, and in 1980, Yes managed to make their entry into the packed field of great albums from 1980 with the release of Drama, and from that album, the track Into the Lens. Already, I'm just amazed how the way that piano is like doubling up on the cadence of the bass, and this is a very unique arrangement here. It's almost like percussive piano playing. And the notes that they're hitting too are strange. It's like ba be dun be dun 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 dun. I haven't even like tried to transcribe the chords yet or anything, but I'll just turn my attention to Steve Howe's guitar bends that are just playing in these like open cadences as everything else is in a real like tout closed cadence. Like Steve Howe is almost playing more like Steve Hackett here, those like long sustained kind of ghostly bends. Because Howe hadn't really done much of that apart from some moments on the Tales album.
Memories, how they fade so fast. Look back, there is no escape. Tie it down, now you see too late.
You can definitely tell that this is not John Anderson, although there are a lot of moments on this album where Trevor Horn does pull it off quite convincingly. I've known people who were fooled in the beginning.
They will never wait.
Supposedly, he was pressured by Chris Squire to mimic Anderson as closely as he could.
I am a camera. I am a camera. Take heart. I could never let you go. And you always let the feeling show.
Notice how different instruments are accenting different, like counts and everything, coming in at odd angles. Each one of them, like Chris Squire will come in at some like odd point and to accent something, and then Alan White will throw in some odd, accents, and then Steve Howe will like throw in some,
Feel the feeling starts. I am a camera.
let's catch up with the lyrics here. Into the Lens, which would be retitled I Am a Camera, as sung many times in the chorus. When the Buggles, when Trevor Horn and Geoff Downes resumed their Buggles activities for a second album, Adventures in Modern Recording, which came out in 1981, and would release I Am a Camera in a more kind of like minimal wave, cold wave vein. Let's see, memories, how they fade so fast. Looking back, that is no escape. Tied down, now you see too late. Lovers, they will never wait. I am a camera. Take heart, I could never let you go. And you, always let the feeling show. Love us all, how you never broke your heart. How you lose them if you feel the feeling start. I am a camera, camera, camera. And you may find time will blind you. This to just remind you all is meant to be. Pretty self-evident. Basically, no matter how much you try and escape your feelings and your of your romantic liaisons, there will be things to remind you, moments in time, moments frozen in time through memory, no matter how much you try and forget it or put it behind you.
I am a camera, camera, camera. And you may find time will blind you. This to just remind you all is meant to be.
I love how they go into this like totally different style, like beautiful ballad part here, just serene, kind of like an escape.
By the waterside, here where the lens is wide, you and me by the sea, taken in tranquility.
This, the way they go into this different style, kind of like oceanside vibe, similar to what like 10cc and the Jam were doing around this time. Like in that song that I did like about 2 weeks ago now, Mr. Clean by the Jam, where it goes from this like eerie, frantic kind of alleyway, nervous song overall to this bossa nova dreamy section in the middle to characterize a dream that the song's protagonist or that the subject of the song is imagining himself in, or like 10cc did like on the album Bloody Tourists. There would be these moments where they go off into dream sequences, or maybe like sometimes the dream could be more like debauched, like on an anonymous alcoholic, like in that disco section where the protagonist gets it on with the wife, with his boss's wife on the floor. Yeah. It must be noted that all this separation, this real tonal clarity that you're hearing, is not the work of Trevor Horn. he didn't produce this album. Like even though his name is synonymous with production, and he would produce 90125. This album, however, is produced by Eddie Offord, and with assistance by Hugh Padgham and a few other. Hugh Padgham is on this as a recording engineer. That's interesting. Eddie Offord, one guy I think kind of sort of at the end of his rock career. Let's see, what did he do during the 80s as far as rock goes? I don't, because I haven't seen his name on many albums from that. Oh, he produced The Sentinel for Palace in 1984. Yeah, that album I know kind of went through some trouble. It like the concept that the band had ultimately got really compromised. They had this concept album in mind, and it ultimately just became a collection of tracks. A good album though, better than anything Marillion did. But then again, the reason that movement had, I think the one problem with that movement was that it just had the wrong leadership. I mean, the best bands out of that whole second wave of English symphonic rock were IQ, and IQ, 12th Night and Palace in that order, and yet Marillion were the ones that just got all the contacts and got all the lucky breaks really. Although before it sounds like I'm throwing too much shade in Marillion's direction, I will say that Fish's first two solo albums were quite good, better than anything Marillion managed to do as a band. And let's see, Art in America, yeah, that album, very few credits, it seems, from, if I look down at this short list on, he produced a 1982 album by the Dixie Dregs. But here even if Eddie Offord was kind of in the twilight of his rock involvement, Hugh Padgham is just stepping up to the plate right here as a recording engineer. He will soon be recording a whole bunch of people. He'll be recording XTC, and 80s era Genesis, like Abacab through Invisible Touch. And of course, Trevor Horn is on this album, and he'll eventually be producing a bunch of landmark albums. Let's see, between 1982 and 1985, The Lexicon of Love by ABC, 90125 by Yes, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome by Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and the album by Propaganda, the German synth pop, art pop foursome, and of course Forum, the Art of Noise. And I have to say, this is quite a return to form for Eddie Offord as a producer, because he had kind of mucked up a few productions. Well, like Relayer, like an interesting album in a class of its own, but has that real shrill production, kind of, like whereas like Close to the Edge had a real tonal clarity to it for its time. It was really good, and then it sounded like it for a while. And Brain Solid Surgery did too, but then in the mid '70s it seemed like the drugs were kind of getting to him, and now he's turning out this real state of the art production. Yeah, this whole thing stays basically in B, but it emphasizes different notes, like each like 8 bars or so. With those piano, the way that piano's being played, the way that as I said earlier, that percussive piano that's like doubling up on Chris Squire's like real closed cadence bass lines, and you can tell it is just not the work of Rick Wakeman, Patrick Moraz, or Tony Kaye. Jeffrey Downes has a very unique, has a style all of his own, which this makes, but then again, the arrangements of this song are so unique, and the accenting that they thought up for this track. I get the sense that Geoff Downes is very, very excited to be playing in Yes, to be playing, because the two Buggles, Downes and Horn, they had been big fans of Yes since like the early '70s, and you get a sense of awe in them, that they're just really excited to be recording with Chris Squire, Steve Howe, Ellen White.
Take heart, I could never let you go. You always let the feeling show. Love us all. How you never broke your heart. How you lose them. If you feel the feeling start.
I like the way that Trevor Horn is squeezing certain vowels, like how you lose them if you feel the feeling start. Yeah, I love the gouged and squeezed vowels.
I am a camera, camera. I am a camera, taken so easily. To person, to glass, reality. Transferring energy.
And that's a tone that kind of recalls a bit of like Tales, that kind of churchy tone, just ever so slightly, not overtly, but it's there. It's cleaner than it would have been, say, in the Tales era. And now you have more of a synth tone.
Just remind you, all is meant to be.
I think that part right there is one of the most exciting parts, where that kind of modulated, like, and you may find time will blind you, where they're all playing like in unison with that drive, that like open cadence kind of urgency. Or I should say like open cadence vocals over like that kind of closed cadence rhythm and the flowing, drive of that. Vocoders, played by Geoff Downes is responsible for that.
By the waterside, where the lens is wide, you and me, by the sea, taken in tranquility.
Here, pay attention to all that Steve Howe is doing right here. He is playing Fender console steel and Telecaster on this track. Yeah, the way the bass finally hits like the low tonic to signal, like they do a few measures of it, and then Chris Squire does finally at the end goes yeah, to sound out, to signal the true end. There you have it, Into the Lens by Yes from their 1980 release, Drama, one of the best of their career. A real return to form after a few albums that were kind of patchy, had some good stuff, had some iffy stuff, and suffered from kind of botched production. Or each album they did between 1973 and 1978 had good stuff on it, but there managed to be something wrong with each one of them, whether it was the production, whether it was certain tracks being overextended, whether it was just maybe a couple of filler tracks. But this one, this album just was flawless. It was just perfect. The compositions were tight, nothing overextended. Everything was care was given to each track. The tonal clarity was just immaculate. You could just follow. You can listen to like that track or any of the other tracks on this album, and each time follow a different instrumentalist. Yes, and despite having the Buggles on board for this release, despite being 2/5 the Buggles, this album was more in the vein of like the Yes album than anything they had put out after 1972. Really, I mean, in fact, it really is like a return to the Yes album. It's like you've got two on each side. You have two big kind of like epic tracks bisected by a short track. You know, with the two short numbers, White Car and Run Through the Light, kind of serving a similar purpose as to what like The Clap and A Venture had served on the Yes album, you know, as like light relief from like the big epic nature of Yours Is No Disgrace, Starship Trooper, Your Move All Good People, and Perpetual Change had been, you know, on the Yes album. Run Through the Light, which would come after Into the Lens, you know, serving as kind of like a sort of soft, kind of melodic relief from what we just heard, and Tempest Fugit, a kind of Rush-like number, Tempest Fugit. In fact, I kind of see Tempest Fugit almost being like a brother song to Spirit of Radio by Rush on Permanent Waves, which also came out in 1980. So Downes and Horn very much honored the job, honored the role, and and fortunately, the contacts made would prove fruitful, even if this particular lineup would never record again. The contacts with Horn would be very integral in the creation of 90125, and the contacts with Downes would prove very fruitful for like Steve Howe, and kind of you could say the fruits of Asia were born from these sessions. Anyway, for more rubies and sapphires from drama and from other Yes albums and from other Y bands, see the directory of albums by English Y artists linked in the description for albums by Yes, the Yardbirds, Yazoo, and the list goes on. As a matter of fact, I have all the Y. I have X, Y, and Z linked together since all those alphabet. Since there are so few bands in those letters, I just linked X, Y, and Z. So you could go to that same page where you will find like Yes, Yellow Dog, Yazoo, the Yardbirds. You'll also find XTC, X-Ray Specs, and like the Zombies, Zior. Yeah. And like and subscribe, and until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear travel trimaximalist, signing off.